The psychology of people who love climbing mountain walls. Have you ever witnessed them? They are a strange and almost incomprehensible species of human being, a tribe of people who have, for some inexplicable reason, chosen to turn their backs on the flat, comfortable, and predictable world that the rest of us inhabit. You see them in the documentaries. They're small, fragile bodies clinging to the sheer, vertical, and terrifying face of a mountain wall. You see the dizzying exposure, the howling wind, the almost invisible holds to which they have entrusted their very existence. And you, a citizen of a world that has elevated comfort, safety, and the avoidance of all unnecessary risk to the level of a sacred duty, cannot help but ask a single, profound, and deeply unsettling question. Why? You look at this spectacle of voluntary suffering, and you diagnose it with the easy, pre-packaged labels our culture provides. They're just adrenaline junkies. They have a death wish. They're running from something. You see their obsession as a form of madness, a pathological and deeply irrational rejection of the good, safe, and comfortable life that the rest of us are so desperately trying to build. You see their ascent as a meaningless and ultimately selfish game, a flirtation with the void for the sake of a fleeting and pointless thrill. But what if you are wrong? What if their love of the climb is not a flight from life, but a deep and instinctual dive into the very heart of it? What if their embrace of the struggle is not a sign of their madness, but of a profound and terrifying form of sanity? What if they are not the ones who are running from reality, but are, in fact, the only ones who have truly found it? The brutal and uncomfortable truth is that the person who loves climbing mountain walls is not a thrill seeker. They are a pilgrim. They are a philosopher of the vertical world. And their journey up the wall is not a sport. It is a profound and sacred form of psychological and spiritual alchemy, a process in which the raw, chaotic, and often terrifying material of their own, ordinary self is transmuted into something hard, something beautiful, something free. And in their strange, silent, and deeply misunderstood obsession lies a secret and powerful teaching for us all, a forgotten map that leads out of the flat, comfortable, and deeply soul-crushing prison of the modern world. The primal confrontation, the wall as the ultimate mirror. To understand the psychology of the climber, you must first understand the nature of the entity they have chosen as their primary dance partner, the mountain wall. The wall is not just a collection of rock and ice. It is a profound and unforgiving psychological and spiritual teacher. It is the physical embodiment of the great, and often terrifying, otherness of reality itself. In our ordinary civilized lives, we are wrapped in a thick and comforting blanket of our own illusions. We live in a world of words, of concepts, of stories. We have convinced ourselves that we are in control, that the world is a predictable and manageable place that will, for the most part, conform to our desires. We are, as the great psychoanalysts and philosophers have always known, living in a dream. The mountain wall is the rude and terrifying awakening from this dream. The wall is not interested in your story. It is not impressed by your status, your wealth, or your carefully constructed persona. It does not care about your feelings. It is a pure, absolute, and utterly indifferent reality. It is the great isness of the world, stripped of all human projection and all sentimental illusion. To step onto the wall is to step out of the comfortable, human-centric dream and into the cold, clean, and terrifyingly real world of the cosmos itself. And in this world, there is only one thing that matters: the truth of your own present moment capacity. You cannot lie to the wall. You cannot cheat it. You cannot charm it. You either have the strength, the skill, and the focus to make the next move, or you do not. The wall is the ultimate and most honest of all mirrors. It reflects back to you not who you think you are, not who you want to be, but who you are in this one single and unforgiving moment. This is the first great and terrible gift of the climb. It is an act of profound and enforced humility. It is a form of purification, a burning away of all the ego's bullshit, of all the stories, of all the self-deceptions. On the wall, you are not your job title, you are not your bank account, you are not your social media profile. You are a body, a mind, and a will, engaged in a life or death dialogue with the Absolute. And in this state of profound and terrifying simplicity, a new and far more authentic form of the self has the opportunity to be born. The alchemy of the struggle, the transmutation of fear into focus. The primary emotional reality of the climb is, of course, fear. It is the primal, cellular, and entirely rational fear of falling, of annihilation, of death. The non-climber sees this fear as the very reason not to climb. They see it as a sign of danger, a warning to be heeded, a state to be avoided at all costs. The climber, however, has learned a different and far more profound relationship with their own fear. They have learned that the fear is not the enemy, it is the path. The climber is not a person without fear. In fact, they are often a person who feels fear with a profound and exquisite intensity. But they are a person who has, through a long and difficult apprenticeship, learned to perform a strange and beautiful act of psychological alchemy. They have learned to transmute the raw, chaotic, and paralyzing energy of fear into the clean, calm, and laser-like energy of focus. When you are on a difficult and exposed climb, your mind does not have the luxury of its usual neurotic chatter. The worries about the past, the anxieties about the future, the endless and trivial concerns of the ego, all of this is burned away in the white-hot intensity of the present moment. There is only the rock, there is only the next move. There is only the feeling of your fingers on the hold, the placement of your foot, the rhythm of your own breathing. This is a state of profound and radical presence. It is a form of enforced mindfulness that is more powerful and more effective than 1,000 hours on a meditation cushion. This is the great and paradoxical secret of the climber's joy. It is not a joy that is found in the absence of fear, but in the perfect and total absorption of it. It is the joy of a mind that has, for a fleeting and glorious moment, been liberated from itself. It has been liberated from the prison of its own petty and self-obsessed concerns, and it has been merged with the vast, silent, and sacred reality of the wall. This is a form of freedom that is almost incomprehensible to the modern, comfort-seeking mind. We have been taught to see freedom as the absence of all constraints, as a life of effortless and frictionless ease. The climber knows a deeper and more ancient truth. They know that true freedom is not found in the absence of constraints, but in the voluntary and total engagement with them. It is the freedom of the dancer who has so completely mastered the rules of their art that they are now free to move with a kind of divine and effortless grace. It is the freedom of the warrior who has looked their own death in the eye and has, in that very act, been liberated from the fear of it. The Nietzschean will to power, the joy of the self-overcoming. We have now reached the deepest and most profound layer of the climber psychology. Their love of the climb is not just a search for presence, and it is not just a dance with fear. It is a profound and life-affirming expression of what the great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche called the will to power. For Nietzsche, the fundamental driving force of all noble and life-affirming existence is not the pursuit of happiness, but the will to grow, to expand, to overcome resistance, to become more than one is. For this kind of soul, a life without struggle, a life of easy and effortless comfort, is not a blessing. It is a curse. It is a form of living death. It is the resistance, the difficulty, the struggle. That is the very source of all strength, all wisdom, and all genuine, hard-won joy. The mountain wall is the perfect and most literal embodiment of this philosophy. It is a pure and utterly indifferent form of resistance. It is a question that is being asked of the climber, a question that is posed not in words, but in the unforgiving language of gravity and rock. And the question is this: are you strong enough? Are you skilled enough? Do you have the will to overcome me? The act of climbing is the climber's answer. It is a triumphant and joyful yes to this question. It is the act of pitting one's own, small, and finite will against the vast and seemingly infinite will of the mountain. And in that struggle of discovering the true and often terrifying extent of one's own power, each move is an act of self-overcoming. Each pitch is a small and hard-won victory in the great and eternal war against one's own limitations. This is the source of the climber's strange and beautiful smile in the face of their own immense and grinding effort. It is not the placid, empty smile of the happy person. It is the fierce, joyful, and deeply satisfied smile of the warrior. It is the smile of the person who has found a form of happiness that is not to be found in the valley of comfort, but only on the high, cold, and unforgiving peaks of their own self-created challenge. This is the practice of amor fati, the love of one's fate in its most literal and embodied form. A climber does not just accept the difficulty of the climb. They love it. They seek it out. They know that the difficulty is not an obstacle to their journey. It is the journey itself. And in this love of the hard, in this joyful embrace of the struggle, they have found a key to a form of human flourishing that is almost entirely lost to our comfort-obsessed world. The path of the vertical warrior, the choice before the modern soul. What, then, can we learn from these strange and often misunderstood figures? These people who have chosen the barren and terrifying world of the vertical for their cathedral, they are not just athletes. They are not just adrenaline junkies. They are a mirror. They are a profound and uncomfortable reflection of the deep and often desperate spiritual poverty of our own flat and comfortable world. The path of the climber is the path of the vertical warrior. It is the path of the person who has, either through instinct or through a conscious philosophical choice, understood that a life without a great and difficult challenge is not a life at all. The journey for the rest of us, for the ones who are living in the comfortable and deeply soul-crushing valleys of modern life, is to have the immense courage to ask ourselves what we are so afraid of. What great and terrifying mountains are we refusing to climb in our own personal and professional lives? What profound and life-altering strengths are we allowing to atrophy simply for the sake of a little bit of comfort, a little bit of safety? The person who loves climbing mountain walls has given us a great and terrible gift. They have shown us the possibility of a different kind of freedom, a freedom that is not found in the endless and exhausting pursuit of a life without resistance, but in the courageous and joyful embrace of it. They have shown us that the ultimate form of happiness is not to be found in a state of perpetual ease, but in the deep and satisfying exhaustion that comes from having given your absolute, all in the service of a difficult and worthy goal. And they have shown us that the ultimate purpose of our lives is not to arrive at a safe and comfortable destination, but to have the immense and terrifying courage to choose a wall that is worthy of our own and the world's deepest and most beautiful struggle.